Laura Ingraham joins us now, the editor-in-chief of LifeZette and contributor here at Fox. Good morning to you, Laura. Can you believe this is the way life is now? I was watching video of some of the Christmas markets here in New York City, and there are security officers with guns standing outside of the markets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should be canceling Christmas markets or fearful to celebrate the faith and the birth of Christ, which was frankly at the founding of our country, where our founders understood the importance of God and virtue, even if they weren't members of organized religion. We're going to be on tenterhooks here in the United States and in Europe, canceling markets, when what we should be doing is taking a really brutal look and a pragmatic look of our policies, both immigration policies, our border enforcement, the refugee policy in Europe that, of course, has allowed in more than 1 million overwhelmingly Muslim refugees into Western Europe. I went back and looked, by the way, and we'll learn more about the perpetrators, but I went back and looked at a piece in the summer where they were interviewing refugees who were true refugees, Muslim, at various camps in Germany and Munich. And refugees were warning Western Europe about the infiltration of the camps by ISIS and other Islamic militants. The conversations that they had, we obviously know 2 of the Paris nightclub attackers were able to infiltrate the refugee ranks by pouring across into Italy and into Greece, and then moving into the rest of Western Europe. I think the West, we're living in a fantasy land. If we think we can continue this without real repercussions for safety and culture, which I think is a conversation it's way overdue.
No kidding. And Laura, this is something we've been talking about for a very long time, and Donald Trump was talking about it out on the stump. He said, you know, we're going to have some extreme vetting because they're letting in people they don't have any idea where they're from.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you cannot vet from certain countries of origin or supposed countries of origin. There's no vetting. It's not like there's some database where we can go and say, okay, they never were radicalized. I mean, we're having trouble maintaining control over relatively new immigrants into the United States who are mostly Islamic, who are radicalized online. I mean, we've already dealt with this time and time again, whether the mall attack earlier this year or of course, the Omar Mateen attack in Florida, the San Bernardino attack, going all the way back to Fort Hood, the Boston Marathon bombings, the attempt at Fort Dix in New Jersey, which was unsuccessful ultimately. But we are barely able to keep ahead of the problem of legal immigrants or legal refugees in the United States without what we're seeing in Europe. So we have to be beyond vigilant at this point to stop this kind of carnage from happening.
Laura, you know, many have said that Europe is a preview of the United States. The United States could be just decades behind a lot of what Europe faces. What's it going to take for Western Europe and Europeans to realize that when you gut your militaries to pay for your welfare states and you open up your borders and don't demand allegiance or assimilation from populations that use those populations to infiltrate with radical Islamists, what will it take for them to say, we will protect our borders, we will protect our cultural identity, and ultimately now our faith, or what's left of it?
Yeah, well, I think what happens with the fall of Christianity in Western Europe, there is bound to be something that takes its place. And you go through Europe, I know a lot of you have traveled, there are a lot of empty churches. A lot of people have lost their faith, or they're not really getting married. They're having kids out of wedlock. I get it. I get that's the cool thing to do for a lot of people now. But without faith, it is hard to keep a society together without some general idea of what it means to be French or what it means to be Swiss or German or Swedish. And now we're seeing this mass flow of humanity. Many people suffering. I understand that. But Europe has already suffered great terror attacks and terror threats and cultural, some people saying it's a slow-moving cultural, cultural genocide that's happening in Europe. I mean, we had 9/11 happen here, and we're still bringing in hundreds of thousands of people legally who we really can't vet. So, I mean, the answer is I really don't know. I mean, how many more people have to die before people think, gee, maybe this is a problem? And in places like Belgium, a lot of people are saying it's already over for Belgium. It's too late. Yeah. There's no turning the tide back.
Some people believe the solution is Donald Trump, and he said this. This is a statement from him. These terrorists and their regional and worldwide networks must be eradicated from the face of the earth, a mission we will carry out with all freedom-loving partners. What's your response to that?
Well, that's a great sentiment. The problem is we have allies who are supporting some of the Islamic attacks. I mean, we have Saudi Arabia that is fomenting, through Wahhabism, fomenting this radical ideology. So, I mean, the West is either going to have an identity and exist or not. If we believe in Western ideals, then we cannot bring in a massive humanity every single year. And Republicans and Democrats are responsible for this, by the way. People who do not buy into pluralistic values, respect for women, respect for other minorities, they don't buy into it. We cannot bring them into the country. Right. Period.
Let's move on to politics, since Ainsley was talking about Donald Trump. Plan B or C backfired on the lefties yesterday because they were counting on a bunch of faithless electors to flip against Donald Trump. As it turns out, 2 did, but 5 flipped for Hillary Clinton and voted for various other people. What do you make of that?
I think all those hikes in the woods, Hillary was looking for those electors. She's like, well, behind that tree, there's another person who's going to turn for Bernie. Yeah, well, again, this shows the futility of both the so-called conservative resistance to Trump and the Clinton, Jill Stein recount. All of it added up to nothing. Remember when in May they were talking about a contested convention? Do you remember that? Remember they said that Indiana with the Kasich Cruz deal, remember that was going to turn the tide against Trump? And now all these months later, it's finally settled. But this isn't going to be settled in the minds of millions of Americans who do not accept Trump as their president. So I think Donald Trump's going to do a lot to try to reach out to Americans, but he has an agenda that he has to advance, and if he doesn't, he's going to have a restless base that is going to be very, very unhappy. So he's got a tightrope to walk, but so far his picks have been, I think, very strong.
Absolutely. They've tried Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. What's D and E? I mean, look into the future for us. What are they going to keep trying to do to discredit him?
I think you're going to see massive litigation against some of the moves that he'll try to make, maybe executive actions and others. I think they're going to use activists to try to disrupt his own movements across the United States. And look, we have the Center for American Progress, which is raising their other wing of that. They're going to try to raise a lot of money to continue the campaign. They're going to have a perpetual campaign against Donald Trump, which means his operation has to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of them. And I think so far they've been utterly ineffective. I mean, I don't know what they have to show to their contributors and their supporters because they've been utterly ineffective. And Hillary just keeps losing ground, not gaining ground.
Sure. I read online that some top fundraisers said until the Democrat Party has an autopsy to figure out what went wrong, I'm not going to give another blanking dime to the Democrats.
Yeah, but it's not going to. The heat's going to continue to be turned up against Donald Trump, and I'm sure they know that. But their whole operation has to. I think they're ready for it. They have to stay ahead of this wave of discontent.
Sure. We had Howie Carr, also another radio talk show host, on the show earlier today, and he says the electoral protesters have no idea what's going on. Listen to this.
These people are totally deranged, I think their motto here is if at first you don't succeed, cry again. They just won't give up. And again, I think that the key to remember here is that there's an old saying, if you believe in nothing, you'll fall for anything. Just another way to raise money. I mean, this has been such a profitable enterprise since the election campaign. Jill Stein, $7.5 million. I'm sure the Hamilton electors raised a ton of dough, and now you have this one. I mean, these people are putting Bernie Madoff and Nigerian princes to shame when it comes to their ability to separate fools from their money.
Laura, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's all about power and money. They don't have any power now, so they want to raise a lot of money. That's absolutely for sure. And a lot of these groups, again, they have nothing to bring to their contributors. No successes.
Yeah.
I mean, they've lost ground in state legislatures, governorships. Of course, they lost the presidency, and this great surprise to all these people who really weren't tuned into the American public's understanding. And so now what they have to do is they have to keep agitating and look for Barack Obama and his supporters, and I think that soon-to-be former president. I think he's still going to be community organizing out there in different ways, but he's not going to go quietly into that good night.
He just leased a great big house in Calorama, not far from where you're sitting, and he's going to be busy in D.C. All right,
Absolutely.
Laura, put on your visor, get your number 2 lead pencil, go edit LifeZette all day long, and be on the radio in 45 minutes.
All right, guys, Merry Christmas.
Merry
If I don't
Christmas
see
to you too. Bye.